A 2018 tweet and an old Hindi film. This was enough to get fact checker with alt news Mohammed Zubair arrested, creating a nationwide outcry and a nationwide debate. I'm Barkha, you're with the Mojo story. Let's take you through the key developments of this free speech debate. Mohammed Zubair, one of the most active chroniclers of hate speech in India. In fact, he was the one who first called out now suspended BJP spokeswoman Nupur Sharma's comments on Prophet Muhammad, is in custody. The court will decide his fate any moment now, and we will bring you up to speed on that as soon as we have the developments. But Zubair has been taken into custody for a 2018 tweet that is actually a kind of comical take on a Hrishikesh Mukherjee film scene. Mr. Zubair has also been a critic of the Modi government, but has also been in some ways an equal opportunity offender among those who first called out Imtiaz Jalil, member of parliament of Asad Owaisi's MIM party, for what the party said about violence against Nupur Sharma. How do we see this? The Editors Guild, the Digipub, they have all slammed this arrest and have in fact invoked Prime Minister Modi's commitment along with G7 nations to free speech and a robust public debate at home. Let's introduce our guest on the program today. Tavleen Singh, veteran columnist, author, journalist, is with us. We're also joined on the program by senior advocate Sanjoy Ghose, who's also, of course, a rights activist. Welcome to the program. We're also joined by Hardik Rajgor, who's a writer and commentator, whose tweets argue that that outrage against Zubair's arrest is valid, but that outrage is not to be seen when others are treated similarly by the state. We're also joined on the program by practicing advocate and commentator Shashank Shekhar. Mr. Jha is not a fan of Mohammed Zubair, as you can see on his tweets, and we'll try to ask him why. And also joining us is Mr. Yashovardhan Azad, who's of course a special director with the Intelligence Bureau. As I said, Vrinda Grover, well-known lawyer, is appearing for Mohammed Zubair in court, where the judgment is expected shortly. But the principles at stake remain ones that we now literally argue over every single day. So let me get started with you, Tavleen. What those who are supporting Zubair's arrest are arguing is that the outrage of people like you, people like me, is selective. You would say what?
Selective how? I have no idea what they mean. And it's a kind of, it's become the sort of normal reaction from the BJP whenever something like this happens. Oh, you didn't do this. You should have got outraged because so-and-so also got arrested. That's not how it works. The principle of arresting a man who, what he did in a democracy is not a crime by any standard. So I actually think that what they've done him for is because he tweeted the clip with Nupur Sharma, and that caused the outrage. But if he hadn't done it, someone else would have, and she remains free. She's not arrested, as far as I know. So we cannot. You cannot have a selective. Forget the selective outrage. You cannot have a selective attitude from the government about who they should arrest or why. It's wrong in principle. That's how you have to look at it in a liberal democracy. I mean, he has a right.
And let's also look at what this tweet is about, right? Let's also look at that. And in fact, we have the clip from this old film, Kissi, Na Kehna, and there's a clear reference in the movie. In fact, the joke is about Hanuman Hotel or Honeymoon Hotel. So my sense is if Hrishikesh Mukherjee had been around today or Farooq Sheikh had been alive, these are actors and directors who could have gone to jail, going by what we're now arresting people for, Tavleen. Tavleen, can you hear me?
Yeah, no, you want what? I didn't understand your question.
I'm saying if you look at the film clip, which was actually what he was excerpting in his 2018 tweet, and I'll just play that for you again, the Hrishikesh Mukherjee film, I was showing our audience that in that film itself, this is not Zubair's tweet, in the movie itself, there was a hotel called Hanuman Hotel, Honeymoon Hotel. There was a play on that word in the movie itself. So if Hrishikesh Mukherjee had been alive today, he could have been arrested.
Yeah, well, that was an older India where people weren't so prickly about everything to do with religion. And, I mean, we are now. Somehow everyone's constantly outraged by something or the other. And they just happen to be supporters of the BJP. It's just accidentally that they get into this. I mean, it's a little bit too disingenuous, to believe this. But basically, what the point that I would really like to make is nobody should be arrested for something like this in a country that claims to be a democracy and that has the right to free speech in our constitution.
Mr. Azad, the questions that really arise here are about the role of the police. And let me preempt some points that will be made. The point will be made about how the Maharashtra police acted against an actor called Ketiki Chitale. I actually interviewed her on the platform. Her interview is on the Mojo story for everyone to watch. I think it was terrible, therefore he's sharing a Facebook post, which may have indeed been in poor taste. Criminal action was taken and she was put away in jail for 40 days. That was the role of the police in Maharashtra. Now the Delhi police is frankly looking farcical when it is making Mohammed Zubair out to be some sort of, deep cover agent conspiring against the Indian state for actually a joke about a movie that makes the same joke itself. It's really the police's role here under scrutiny, Mr. Azad.
There are a lot of questions, Barkha, you have asked in this one question of yours. First of all, I think that Chitale, her name, if I remember correctly, I think these cases are different because she was lampooning a politician. So that was totally ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. In this case, I think the procedure of arrest is wrong. Let me talk professionally. This was, and Jhaji will also agree with me, that this was a case which has punishment less than 7 years. Therefore, a notice under 41 CRPC should have been given. And I think in cases like this, even the arrest was not required. What do you need a custodial interrogation for? He has made a statement, somebody is affected by it. If you want to do it, you just go ahead and put up the charge sheet. So what is happening, as Tavleen has rightly said, that the atmosphere has become very, very fragile and, everyone is getting affected. But mind you, Barkha, my second point is, there are Hanuman devotees in this country. Now Zubair is handling a very respectable thing, the alt news, and people look up to him for fact checking and things like that. Is it necessary to all the time lampoon Hindu gods? As far as I'm concerned, personally, I'm not affected. I'm not affected by any of these statements. But there are people. Should you not remain away from these sensitive posts? I mean, no, it is not exactly coming from the movie. It is not a reproduction of the movie. It says that before 2014, honeymoon hotel, and after 2014, Hanuman hotel. Why do you have to talk
a political comment? Why? Hang on. That's more a comment on his politics than on his views on religion. He is making a comment on what happened in 2014, the BJP won.
I don't agree.
And whether you agree with his politics or not, does he not have the right to be a critic of the government?
No, he doesn't have a right to comment on Indian gods. And mind you, I did a research on him after Ashish called me this morning, and I've seen all his reports. You see, he has talked about Shivling and Rome, and he says one comes from the other. This is a typical Abrahamic people who are trying to hate the idolaters. There are so many of these posts. He has talked about rocketry, and every time he has made fun of some god or the other. Now, you and I, English speaking, may not be affected, doesn't impact our lives, but there are many who have become very, very sensitive. And yes, maybe because of whatever reasons the Hindus have become activated. So a person has a right to file an FIR. So what do you do if somebody files an FIR?
Let me ask you this.
Meri baat sun lijiye, please. No, please listen to me, Barkha. Please listen to me. अगर हमारा घर शीशे का है, हम दूसरे के घर पे पत्थर नहीं मारते हैं. आप नुपुर शर्मा के बारे में बात कर रही हैं. It's fine, it's okay. Nobody supported her. It's a wrong thing which she did, but she's quoting from a text, right? So why are you against her? Why can't you lampoon your own religion if you're that, funny? Are you balanced on both sides? So I don't agree with this. As far as the rest is concerned,
can I ask you something? Can I ask you something, and then I'd like to go to the others.
Sure.
If they weren't those who are rah-rahing Zubair's arrest are going on making the point that there's a selectiveness in the outrage. But actually there's a selectiveness in the arrests. Nupur Sharma, whom you have drawn an analogy with, has not been arrested.
There are
And Mohammed Zubair has been arrested for a joke borrowed from a movie that made that joke within the movie itself. The only thing he's linked it to is his political preference or his political sort of comment. You can't arrest
I
somebody for not liking, any
I
government, whether it was
first of all,
KCP and
I
Sharad
don't
Pawar
want to
or
join
it is
this.
Mohammed Zubair and the Modi government, both.
Right. First of all, I don't want to join this narrative against the government or for the government. I'm not for any party, and I don't care what they do. My issue is very simple. In this particular case, a Hanuman Bhakt has got offended, and he has filed an FIR. If you see if the ingredients of this case, and I'm sans any kind of politics, he says honeymoon hotel 2014 के पहले था, अब उसे कहा जा रहा है Hanuman Hotel, and he's hurt. Do you blame him for this? I totally agree that Nupur Sharma should have been arrested that day itself. Absolutely right. I totally agree. It may be selective. I'm talking specifically about this case.
Okay. I think we've heard two very divergent views. Let's bring in the others now. Sanjoy, then Shashank, and then Hardik. Sanjoy, go ahead. Hang on, Sanjoy. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. So thank you for having me. It's very amusing when we discuss without a context of the law and the Constitution. You see, the Constitution gives us a fundamental right to free speech. Under Article 19 and Article 19(2), there are restrictions. Now, all these things, the penal code we are talking about, these offences came in the British era. So when it came to be tested under the constitutional law, that is the time actually when the first amendment was made to the Constitution to protect these laws by adding in public order. Now, to make it simple for your non-legal audience, so the tests are twofold. One, there has to be an intention. So my learned friend is talking about, oh, can you blame a Hanuman Bhakt from being hurt? No one has a right not to be hurt. Let him be hurt. But the law is there an intention, a criminal intention, number one? And secondly, is public order affected? Because the public order was added in the Constitution in the First Amendment of 1951, which thereafter justified these kind of restrictions on free speech. Now, as you rightly said, this is a 2018 incident. Has there been any public order affected? Has there been any kind of riots on this tweet of Zubairs? Or why do you go to 2014? Let's go back to 1983 when poor Hrishikesh Mukherjee made this movie. Was there any kind of public order affected? And also the issue of intention. Was it the intent of this person to cause enmity, to cause religious ill will, etc.? So, what is happening is we are becoming, as Tavleen ji said, we are becoming extremely insensitive in this country, or rather we are becoming extremely sensitive in this country. We get pricked too easily. This is a country where we hounded out one of our greatest artists, M.F. Hussain, and before the trollers attack me saying he has painted Hindu gods, etc. Let me tell you, the Delhi High Court has passed an order in favor of Hussain, saying that his free speech has to be recognized in favor of people.
And we'd have to invoke what happened with Salman Rushdie as well. And both of them are incidents where free speech was compromised because of religious orthodoxy.
Only one thing I want to make, and I'll end that, Barkha, is on the issue of outrage and selective outrage. Let's make a distinction between the private citizen and the state. And as you rightly said, the state has discriminated in the matter of arrest. I'm not asking for Nupur Sharma's arrest. The point I'm making is that as a private citizen, it is my right. I want to be outraged about A issue, it's my right. I don't want to be outraged about B issue, it is my right. I'm a private citizen, I'm accountable to no one. But a state can't have this luxury. A state has to act independently and fairly. And sadly, may I say, because I know Zubair, and Zubair, I've been consulted by Zubair and Pratik in the past. Let me tell you that this has been the intent, and it's so sad. When Zubair actually tweeted about one person who was hatefully writing hate tweets on Twitter, he had a display picture with his granddaughter. Zubair pixelated the granddaughter's face and tweeted by saying, would your granddaughter be proud of you saying such things? And guess who was affected? The child rights, the National Commission for Protection of Child Rights got activated. Instead of being activated for actual children who are facing all kinds of rights deprivation, this fellow Zubair was hounded by the National Commission for Child Protection of Child Rights. So this is how institutions are being compromised, and they are actually following the agenda of the government, which obviously, and we don't have to be a
Okay.
even a 5-year-old will know what is happening and why all this is happening.
Let me bring in Shashank and Hardik now. Shashank, for those who are talking about Zubair's selectiveness, I would like to remind everybody that when there was confusion over whether Imtiaz Jalil, Member of Parliament of Owaisi's MIM, had actually called for Nupur Sharma to be hung from a town square, it was again Zubair who fact-checked that video and said, this is what he said and this is hate speech. So I'm just giving that as an example of Zubair's own consistency with calling a spade a spade. Why are you as a lawyer celebrating his arrest? I've gone through your Twitter timeline. You're critical of those who are protesting today. Bataiye kyun?
Namaste, Barkha ji. Barkha ji, I guess there should be similar yardsticks for everyone. If you criticize Nupur Sharma for her comments and you want her to be arrested, like someone just stated on your show, or people were in fact asking for Sar Tan Se Juda for Nupur Sharma, I guess the similar kind of response should be given for everyone. If you cannot talk about Prophet Muhammad, his family, and anyone associated with Islam, then you have no liberty or no protection when you speak for Hindu gods. Like someone stated on your show, if you go through Zubair's tweets and his deleted Facebook post, he has continuously targeted Hindu society, Hindu culture, and Hindu religious deities. Now the problem is, now I am not for someone to get arrested, but then if you are arresting someone and if you are lodging an FIR, multiple FIRs in different states under section 295A of IPC for religious offenses, that is called blasphemy, then you will have to have similar kind of things for Zubair as well. Now someone is comparing time and again that Nupur Sharma has not been arrested, but Zubair has been arrested. But then you need to understand that that this particular tweet against Zubair was done in 2018, while Nupur Sharma made a statement in 2022. If you go through the context of both the tweets and the statement, Nupur Sharma merely quoted from Hadith, which has been clarified by multiple Islamic scholars that what she stated was correct, whereas what Zubair did was an intentional thing that, before 2014 it was Hanuman Hotel, and now it was Honeymoon Hotel, now Hanuman Hotel.
Shashank, that joke is within the movie itself. Can I ask you a question? That joke about honeymoon versus Hanuman, अगर आप वो फिल्म का क्लिप देखें, we can just play that once. I just want you to. That joke कि उसकी मात्रा किसी ने उतार दी है. That joke is it's embedded within the movie itself. Hanuman vis-a-vis honeymoon. ये देखिए आप. ये हनुमान है कि honeymoon है. उसकी e की मात्रा जो छोटी e की मात्रा है वो मिटाई हुई है किसी ने. So what I'm trying to say is that joke is embedded within the movie itself. So the only difference he does is make a political comment that he joins with it. I'd like your response to that, Shashank.
Barkha ji, there are 2 points like here. One, अभी कोई कह रहे थे कि MF हुसैन साहब के बारे में अगर उन्होंने पेंटिंग की है हिंदू गॉड्स के ऊपर और दिल्ली हाईकोर्ट ने प्रोटेक्शन दिया है, तो दिल्ली हाईकोर्ट या मल्टीपल हाईकोर्ट ने अलग अलग टाइम में अलग अलग प्रोटेक्शन दिया है, लेकिन इसका ये मतलब नहीं है कि लोग दंगा करेंगे तो ही लॉ एक्शन लेगा. अभी संजय सर बहुत सीनियर लॉयर है सुप्रीम कोर्ट के, और वो कह रहे थे क्योंकि कोई दंगा नहीं हुआ, किसी ने मारपीट नहीं की, किसी ने देश नहीं जलाया, तो इसलिए अरेस्ट नहीं होना चाहिए. ये अपने आप में लीगल साउंड नहीं करता है. दूसरी बात, इफ यू आर सेइंग कि ये मूवी 1983 में है और उसका क्लिप है और उसके बाद उसको कैप्शन के साथ लिखा गया है, तो इट मींस कि अगर एक गलत हुआ है तो आप उसको दूसरे गलत से जस्टिफाई थोड़ी ना कर सकते हैं कि नहीं क्योंकि उस पे एक्शन नहीं हुआ है तो आप पे भी नहीं हो, क्योंकि अलकायदा पे एक्शन नहीं हुआ तो आईएसआई पे भी ना हो.
पर ऋषिकेश मुखर्जी अलकायदा तो नहीं है ना मोहम्मद जुबैर उसामा बिन लादेन है.
I'm just giving a reference.
I understand, but Shashank, what I want to take to Hardik is what frightens me, and I think that's the point Tavleen made, is this overarching power that the state, the police can abrogate for itself. I think we should be really concerned as citizens about this, कि कोई भी आके कुछ भी कह के आपको कह सकता है that you have offended my religion, my sentiment, my feelings, and we are now arresting you because we don't like you. This kind of politics happens at the state level, and this kind of politics happens at the national level. It happens in Mamata Banerjee's Bengal, it happens in Sharad Pawar's Maharashtra, and it happens in Mr. Modi's, the police that reports to the Home Ministry under Mr. Modi's government. मैंने तीनों parties का नाम लिया है. हार्दिक, अब आप बोलिए.
So, Barkha, I think what is also relevant is the context, which is that there were 2 issues that happened within a matter of days which exposed this asymmetry very clearly. So just before the Nupur Sharma incident, just few days back, we had the Gyanvapi mosque debate in public discourse, right? And you had a lot of people, including prominent journalists, or there was a member of parliament that made certain shivling jokes that were offensive to a lot of people, right? A couple of these jokes even made it to mainstream newspapers. Now we had the normal thing, the outrage cycle for 3 days. People said we're offended, they trended a hashtag, and we moved on. But then what did we move on to? We had the Nupur Sharma incident. Now, as we stand today, if you look at that particular issue, Nupur Sharma has a bounty on her head by some figures, religious figures in India. There are 15 countries that have condemned her statements. There are two terror groups that have said they will bomb Indian cities over it. So, for the people, there is a very wide asymmetry on how these issues are dealt with. So, I think there is a hardening happening on the Hindu side that either everyone has free speech or no one has free speech. Everyone is will face the brunt of the law in the same degree or the same manner.
Can you tell me, before I can see Tavleen raising her hand, where do you see the asymmetry in the state's response? You're talking about street protests. What about the state? I see the asymmetry the other way around when it comes to Nupur Sharma, and let's say even before that, those sammelans that took place in Haridwar, the Yati Narasimhan characters, how long it took for the police to act. So Hardik, when you say there's a hardening because there's an asymmetry, where do you see the asymmetry primarily?
No, I agree with you. The asymmetry is definitely so. Like you said before, the whether it's the Bengal government, whether it's the Maharashtra government, they are all equally on this. And like for a citizen, the scary part for me is that our free speech is getting diluted in this escalation of competitive outrages. So everyone is competing in what is the silliest thing that I can outrage about, and that is it's a terrible outcome for free speech. So I agree with you on that.
Okay, let's bring Tavleen in. Tavleen, go ahead.
I am actually quite surprised that the Hindus have become so unsure of their religion. I've always been a very proud Indian. I'm a Sikh. And, the Hindus I grew up with were not at all embarrassed about being Hindu. And the Sikhs, by the way, make jokes about their own gurus the whole time. So what is going on? But that's just a small point. The real point we have to understand is that there is hate speech, calling for genocide, calling for Muslim houses to be broken down. I get on my own timeline on Twitter, hate speech the whole time. And there is free speech. Actually, I think that it's ironic that India's First Amendment was to restrict free speech, and the American First Amendment was to protect it. So, Nehru at that point was very, very, I actually think quite wrong to make that restriction, because there already is a law that says you cannot make hate speech, you cannot cause trouble with what you say. But, the other thing is that, the charges that are being used against Muslims, for instance, who's that, the man, the JNU guy who's been in jail for a very long time, he's been charged with
Umar Khalid.
Starting the Delhi riots. I was in Delhi, you were in Delhi. He didn't start the Delhi riots. Whereas a man, a Hindu, and a lawmaker who actually made a terrible speech, and it was immediately after that the violence began, he was not even charged, right? So, if the state is seen to be unfair, you will cause trouble that goes well beyond free speech. We have a Muslim population that is not small, and they stayed in India because they were assured that they would be treated with as much respect. We may not like their religion. I actually have a very poor opinion of Islam, frankly, but that's for them to decide what they want to do. And there must be many people who think Sikhism is a silly religion. But the point is that we have seen of late a real, a very clear attack on Muslims.
Respect each other's religions.
Yeah.
But and not call anybody's faith silly.
Yeah, don't do that. Let's just agree on that. But what is this sudden, selectivity when it comes to arresting people? It's Muslim comedians, Muslim journalists. Why?
Let me bring in Shashank at this point. Shashank, my question to you is this. I think Tavleen referenced Kapil Mishra, who has been a BJP leader, who famously or infamously gave the slogan, Goli Maro Salon Ko, not arrested. Nupur Sharma, who you are now saying is not an example of hate speech, not arrested. If it was not hate speech, I have no idea why our government had to issue an apology and suspend her. They must have thought she did something wrong. कुछ तो हमारी सरकार ने ही सोचा होगा कि गलत है कि उनको सस्पेंड करके इतनी सारे देशों को अपॉलॉजी इशू की. So my question to you is, when we as citizens watch Zubair being taken in for a 2018 tweet, but we don't see, and by the way, I'm qualifying things by saying I am not in favor of a criminal action except in the rarest of rare cases. So I am not very comfortable at the idea of state arrests. But when we see all of the others not getting arrested, and we see Zubair being taken in for a 2018 tweet, how do you call it selective? Selective to other way lag raha hai.
Barkha ji, I guess now again, Tavleen ji and you have at multiple points have selectively said things which I do not subscribe to. For example, when you say that we do not subscribe to this and how Hindus became so intolerant. What Hindu did in past 3 days? They just asked for the arrest of Zubair. Zubair was arrested and they celebrated. On the other hand, there are so many bounties on Nupur Sharma. There were rallies against her asking for Sar Tan Se Juda. Do you see that this is a difference between the communities? Now, Hindus are not asking for Sar Tan Se Juda. Hindus are not asking for beheading of Zubair or assassinating Zubair or for that one Muslim as a community. They're just asking for the legal measures which has been
Shashank,
prescribed.
I will tell you, I will briefly interject just to say there have been death threats against me by a man who repeated them on Twitter today. He called for the killing of 8 journalists, including myself, after the farmers' protest. And despite police complaints, there hasn't even been an investigation against him. I'm not going to name him because I'm not going to give him mufat ka publicity. But if you think there's not violence across the spectrum online and some of us have been targeted by it, then respectfully, I would disagree. But please go ahead.
Thank you, Barkha ji. Because see, I am not going into selective, a particular point here. What I was making or summing up is that when this Nupur Sharma thing was, in public, there were multiple rallies across India, from common man to member of parliaments, asking for beheading of Nupur Sharma. And yes, Government of India did not apologize. They just issued clarification that Nupur Sharma is not affiliated to Government of India. Now, another point is, if you have blasphemy law in India, you need to have similar yardsticks for everyone. You cannot, pardon someone for making derogatory posts on Hindu gods, including M.F. Hussain and Zubair, whereas you will be, asking for their heads if they comment on Islamic prophets. So I guess that is the problem here. If Tavleen ji and you are commenting on Hindu society becoming intolerant, you should.
I am not making that comment because I actually am a free speech absolutist. I just want to clarify my position. My position is not that I don't look at things through the prism of religion because I'm agnostic and I'm a free speech absolutist. So I'm just making my own position clear. I don't believe that anyone should be arrested for expressing an opinion.
I will just finish in 10 seconds, Barkha ji. The problem is, if a Hindu is a free speech absolute, he is secular. But when a Muslim is free speech absolute, he is a Muslim or Islamic person. And that is the difference. And that is why you see the difference in outrage. There are still posts on Twitter and Facebook of, Shivling being mocked openly by different communities, including Hindus and Muslims and Sikhs and Christians. But you will not see a single one against Islamic prophet.
Okay, let me bring in Sanjoy and then Mr. Azad and then Hardik in that order. Sanjoy, the court will now have to decide what happens with Mr. Zubair. And the point is, the last word on the boundaries of this have not been spoken. And though we want to leave politics out of it, how do we leave politics out of it? What we are seeing actually is that your right to free speech almost depends on your relationship with your immediate point of authority. So if you're a critic of, let's say, the dominant political force in your immediate reality, you're vulnerable. And this happens both at the district level, the state level, and now the national level. And we should all be very concerned.
Absolutely. There are 2 points I want to make, Barkha. Number one is, you're absolutely right. You see, in India, the criminal justice system, the process is the punishment. So let's be very clear. So even if ultimately 5 years, 6 years later, there's an acquittal, You go through a trial, you go through incarceration, you go through hiring lawyers, you go through hearings. You basically are punished through the process. So a lot of people know this, and they actually use criminal law and filing criminal cases all over. And I'm not blaming one party or one people. Everyone does that. And that itself, somewhere down the line, the courts have to be conscious of this, and the courts have to be awoken to this reality that the process itself is becoming the punishment. Second, you're absolutely right, and this is a cause of concern. Now, even with what was done by the Supreme Court very astonishingly in para 88 of his judgment, which is anonymous, exhorted that these people who were helping this widow, Ehsan Jafri's widow, to access justice should be put in the dock. And immediately, promptly, these people were arrested. So let's be very clear over here that these arrests are not only being done to punish that individual concerned, but these arrests are being done to create a chilling impact which runs all through civil society. These people are being targeted not only for who they are, but what they represent. And therefore, what is being done is basically a message is going loud and clear that, look, it is only one voice which we will accept. You dissent, you speak truth to power, and you are looking at incarceration, you're looking at police complaints. So yes, for a civil democracy, and I share the outrage of my learned younger colleague who may have views from the right wing or whatever, because we must understand we are not a one-party state. And every political party, even my right-wing brothers and sisters who are fighting equally fascist governments in other opposition ruled states are facing this. But somewhere, some party has to draw the line and say enough is enough. And this
exactly. I actually think we keep citing examples of what's happened in other states and other faiths to rationalize what uniformly should concern us, that we are losing our sort of normal mechanisms of expression. We may not always be tasteful. We may sometimes be defamatory. There is a law, a civil sort of recourse that should exist. But to pick people up and put them in jail, Mr. Azad, are you really comfortable with that? Can't hear you, Mr. Azad. Yeah, now we can. Go ahead.
Yeah. I totally agree with you that across the states, I think the freedom of speech is under peril. And I'm using this word very consciously because if you see any state, statements of any kind made against political leaders, made against the government, and they're causing consequences. But, Barkha, I think we're having two parallel debates here. One is, of course, the question of how the present government at the center is curbing expression, freedom of expression. And the other is this particular case in itself. I'm really amused with some of the arguments made by my learned friend that if there is no public outcry, the difference which he is giving in public order and law and order is very well understood. But it doesn't mean that if one FIR which is lodged and creates a tremendous public unrest is justified, and the other one which creates no public interest but it causes hurt is not really justified. So what I'm saying is,
in 2018, in your opinion, what was happening between 2018 and 2022?
You're talking two different questions. I'm
just trying to understand. I'm trying to understand. A police officer gets his FIR. What happens after that? What is he or she?
I'm not insisting on the FIR at all. I'm not insisting on the FIR. I'm saying that आपका घर अगर शीशे का तो है, आप उस पे पत्थर नहीं डालें. Why do you consistently lampoon the gods? As far as I'm concerned, it doesn't make a difference to me. But if somebody is affected by it, how do you say that, no, you should not be affected? Oh, this was just a joke. Why do you get into this area? You're an educated, sensitive man.
So religion basically should be a no-go area. And I'm going to get Hardik
in India, yes.
We have the judgment for you in a minute from now. Let's bring in Hardik in the meantime. Hardik, go ahead. Let me also remind you, the Prime Minister at the G7 commits to a robust public debate, free media, and so on. The Delhi court, meanwhile, we can just have this updated on our banners also. Zubair will remain in custody with the police for another 4 days. This is the order we have from the court. More details coming in. Let's keep the conversation going. Hardik, does it help India's image abroad? I agree that we should not be defined. By the way, I was one of those who actually felt really irritated that we had to kowtow to Arab states. I was not in favor of that. I think we must be able to settle our conversations at home. And I thought the government should have heard people's outrage at home more than the outrage of the Arab nations. But the G7, the Prime Minister is at an international platform right now. Does this help India's image abroad, Hardik?
It may not help, but I think it is more for us to deliberate upon how we see ourselves. I think that is more important. We have a power center in the state, as well as at the state level, as well as at the center, and at every level we have the same issue. There's a beautiful quote by the comedian Ricky Gervais. He says, offense cannot be given, it can only be taken. And what someone takes offense to, you can't tell. And you have people, everyone wants someone they disagree with, arrested. And it's absolutely, I find it extremely silly that people are constantly tagging, under tweets, the police is tagged and people are told to be arrested. It's absolutely farcical to, engage in this game. And like I said earlier, I think it's not good for us as citizens, about everything else.
Ideally, how would you have had the state respond? Hardik?
Yeah, I think
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry. Am I
Go
audible?
ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I mean, the state, I think the state's function should ideally be to be as away when it comes to policing on issues of thought and speech, and except for, like, obviously, direct calls to violence and stuff like that, and act more on, action and behavior. Like, that is what ideally I would want the state function to be. Like you, I'm also bordering on absolutism when it comes to free speech.
Okay, so we are waiting for more details of this order. We only know at the moment that the Delhi court has remanded Mohammed Zubair to 4 days more in police custody. Are you surprised, Tavleen?
Not.
Can we? Yeah, go ahead.
I totally agree that basically the justice system is actually unavailable to most Indians. So the process of the justice system is the punishment. And that is, you've seen the enforcement directorate in particularly in Maharashtra used all the time, Riya Chakravarti, and then suddenly we forget about that. Aryan Khan, what are we doing? For a start, I did not say that Hindus have become more intolerant. I said, why have they become so unsure of themselves? I grew up in an India in which Hindus were very confident of who they were, and we were not Muslims. Our religion is not a rigid Islamic religion that believes in blasphemy or anything of the sort. And we should be proud of that. Why are we suddenly worried about, about what are really very silly things, like a clip in a movie? I used to cover Pakistan, as you know, as well as you did. And I was always very relieved to come back to India because, you didn't have some mullah telling you to cover your head or, you show your legs. You didn't have that. And I'm actually very worried that we are going the Pakistan way, which to me is a move backwards rather than forwards. And that really scares me.
Shashank, let's bring you in. As we wait for more details, the judgment will be posted. We only have the summary of it right now. Of course, the prosecutor in court argued, just to share some of the details, that Mr. Zubair's phone had been cleared of apps. His phone had been formatted. Vrinda Grover, on the other side, said that it was his job as a journalist to hold power, to account, and that is what he had done. And she even offered to play the Hrishikesh Mukherjee clip in court, as we played for our audience. Now, what is the police going to do with Mr. Zubair in 4 days more custody, you think? What is the purpose of it?
Barkha ji, I guess now we are talking about Zubair's arrest, whether he should be in jail or not. I guess next 4 days will be because he deleted few apps according to prosecution side. So they will be asking as to what applications were there and what did he try to hide. But then the moot fact is we are trying to understand whether this law should be there or not, whether people who are offending other regions should be arrested or not. Now, while we talk this, I have this tweet 20 minutes back from a person called Riaz in Udaipur. He actually posted a video where he said that he assassinated with a blade in his hand, and he assassinated a person, he beheaded a person who put a status in favor of Nupur Sharma. Now, Nupur Sharma is the same person for whom a cutout video, edited video was put up by Zubair initially, after which there were multiple beheading, posts against Nupur Sharma was formulated. So I guess if you are having a society which is not very much keen to having blasphemy against their own, I guess then at that very same point there will be
Shan,
retaliation from
can I
others
say
as well.
something? Can I say something? I think speech by Hindus, Muslims, politicians, non-politicians, where violence is threatened, is a different order of speech than somebody expressing an opinion, right? In that particular case, let's say Kapil Mishra had a violence embedded in his statement. Nupur Sharma did not. Mohammed Zubair has no violence. The Riaz you quote has violence. So I think we should be able to distinguish on these grounds. Sanjoy, maybe you can help us also add to what Shashank has said. Sanjoy?
No, I was raising my hand. A quick clarification.
Yes.
Now, in 1988, people went to the court with a PIL saying that serial tamash should be banned because it will cause enmity and affect religious feelings. So the court has consistently said that the test is the test of a reasonable man. And will a reasonable man seeing a 1983 Hrishikesh Mukherjee clip retweeted in 2014 be so impacted? Even the strongest supporter of Hanuman, I listen to Hanuman Chalisa daily, we will not be affected, number one. Number two, the issue, the gentleman from the police, the issue of public order is why this section is constitutional. So you have to test it on public order, and I was using public order specifically in the context of arrest. If there has been no riots, if there has been no disorder, where is the need to immediately promptly arrest him? So now coming to the issue of what you were saying with regard to what will happen in 3 days, etc. These are now, for example, he is doing journalism. He is getting information from protected sources. If he wants not to share this information, is up to him. It is a part of his right. Of course, there's a debate going on as to whether the protection of silence of an accused also covers his electronic stuff. But now these are all issues which ultimately the courts will have to go into. The issue which you have to concern is that is this a case, and my colleague was talking about Nupur Shah. Let's be very clear. Zubair has not been arrested for provoking death threats on Nupur Shah. The case against him is that he has tweeted and insulted a Hanuman Bhakt. So let's not go into whataboutery. Let's deal with this situation, because ultimately the malaise is much deeper. And I don't think there's anyone on this panel who does not know the actual reason why this person has been targeted.
And what is that actual reason according to you?
I think it's crystal clear. Zubair, along with Pratik at Alt News, has been at the forefront of exposing the fake news narrative, which has been such integral part of this IT machinery of the ruling government. And therefore, this is exactly, we were talking about free speech. The government of India has been requesting Twitter to take down Rana Ayub, but the government is not asking Twitter to take down Preeti Gandhi and others who are equally foul-mouthed and who are cyber coolies. So therefore, Where is the fairness in action of the state?
Let me bring in Mr. Azad on the police and what complaints the police needs to process in what manner. And I want to talk a little bit about this handing over of phones and laptops. And we have seen this in all cases from Riya Chakrabarti to now, people's private WhatsApps, private conversations getting displayed and so on. I don't think it's a fair expectation unless you are being investigated for a hard crime, which is terrorism or, war against your state or let's say money laundering. For a tweet, why do you need people's phones and laptops? Why are we expected to give up our privacy so easily, Mr. Azad? I mean, I have to say that this notion that we have that agar kuch छुपाने के लिए नहीं है, तो आप सब कुछ दिखा दीजिए. This is misplaced. Justice Chandrachud of the Supreme Court gave a very important order in the right to privacy. We have things that are personal to us that we do not want police people or the state going through.
I've already made a statement right in the beginning that there was no need for arrest even, forget about seizing laptops. But before that, first of all, I'm not from the police, for the gentleman who's from the legal profession who was talking about me. And that I'm really not representing the police. I'm an ex-IPS officer, and my name is Yashovardhan Azad. I mean, in case you didn't get name, I got your name though. Barkha, you're absolutely right that in this particular case, I've already said there was no need for arrest. And besides, the other thing is there's no need for custodial interrogation. I'm surprised why the magistrate is giving him time. And even if you want to seize the laptop, you would have seized the laptop. You should get it by a court order. And after the court order, you want to reformat it, you can get all the evidence if you want. But in this particular case, because this is a 2018 incident and the Twitter, on the Twitter it is available, you have ready-made evidence. And therefore, I am totally against this kind of procedure by the police. It is unnecessary. It is making the process more cumbersome. And this is certainly not the way to go about it. And
I'm glad you've said that. I'm glad you've said that, because this overreach, today it's a side you disagree with. Tomorrow it'll be one of us. This is going to not spare anybody. This overarching power that we are giving to the state and criminal authorities. I need to start taking last comments. We do not have more details yet of this judgment. Just the 4 days remand to police custody. Shashank, go ahead. Shashank, yeah.
Yeah, the process, why this process is important, we need to understand that. Now, there was a statement made by junior OSC in Hyderabad literally abusing Hindu gods and deities. Now, that person has been acquitted by court because saying that, we have the deficiency in evidences. Now, why did they say so? Because they could not get the device through which the video was recorded initially. Now, this is the same reason why Zubairs custody is required, because they will have to go through whether, because according to Indian Evidence Act, they have to go through the device, whether that has been processed from this device and other stuffs, including that.
Joy, you want to comment on that?
No, I just wanted to say the last day of the Constituent Assembly, while saying goodbye to the members, Ambedkar said, even the best constitution in the hands of bad people will result in injustice. And that's what we are witnessing today. It's very, very sad. Very, very sad day for everyone, irrespective of political party, irrespective of belief, because who is in power today will be in opposition tomorrow. And we have to protect the robust independence of our institutions. And one by one, these institutions are being compromised, and we know how it's being done. And for the citizenry, it's a very, very, very sad day.
Hardik?
Yeah, as a citizen, I think we should keep demanding more speech. I'm, sitting in Mumbai, and I remember when Arnab Goswami was arrested, it was cheered by a lot of people saying, a hate monger has been arrested. Now another group of people thinks Zubair is a hate monger. I think we need to get, over this constant labeling or playing judge and just demand more speech for everyone.
Sorry. Before I give the last word to Tavleen, Mr. Azad, you wanted to comment briefly?
I just wanted to add a line. The compromising of the institutions, and as Tavleen would agree with me, has not started now. It has started from a long time back. Of course, it's very visible. It's stark in your face. But, whether it's the Enforcement Directorate and whether it's the CBI. In fact, you remember, Barkha, people used to say CBI is called the Central Bureau of Investigation against the Opposition. And it has been used, and the income tax rates have also been used right from before during the elections time. So the question is that we have to get all the political parties, unless they get together and see the peril which the democracy is facing in future, nothing would happen, and this will not change.
Okay, we will wait for the court's detailed order, which will explain why it chose to basically allow for the police's and the prosecutor's request for a few more days in custody. We don't have those details up on the court's sort of website yet. Zubair's lawyers have moved applications for lawyers right to visit. The court has granted the police the right to recover his laptop from Bangalore, which is where he is a resident of. So those are a few more details that are coming in. So that laptop will be taken over by the police for examination. Tavleen, your last thoughts?
We have to understand it. There's been a lot of confusion even in this discussion on the difference between hate speech and free speech. And that is the most important thing we need to understand, that Zubair did not at any stage make hate speech. At any stage. So he had it, and he was doing a very good job of checking the government, right? Or checking.
Well, I just want to tell you that the judge has observed that Zubair has not remained cooperative, and the recovery of the device used for posting the tweet is yet to be made. I'm just sharing the details as they're coming in.
That is a violation of freedom. They should have, as you just pointed out, they should have no right to be trawling through our phones and, and our laptops. It's not their right. And we have to start speaking out against the wrongful arrest of anyone when, they're charged, wrongly arrested, and then punished by the process. That is wrong.
I think we should all be extremely concerned because, it can be anyone's sort of laptop tomorrow. I'm going to take a round more of final comments because we have a few more details with everybody's permission. I'm just going to read out what the order said. The order said the chief magistrate in this particular case, Snigdha Sarvaria, observed that Zubair has remained non-cooperative and the recovery of the device used for posting the tweet is yet to be made. The order then stated, considering that the mobile phone or the laptop of the accused used by him for posting the tweet in question is to be recovered and the accused has remained non-cooperative, that is the basis on which 4 more days of police custody is to be given and the accused has to be taken to Bangalore with the police. So that's what we have. Let's start taking last comments. Sanjoy, I'll start with you.
Well, the matter is sub judice, so it would not be fair to comment. But just hypothetically, let's ask ourselves, has Zubair denied making the tweet? If he has not denied making the tweet, how does it matter which device he's made the tweet from? And why should 4 more days of custody and deprivation of liberty be done? After all, Justice Chandrachud in court said even in the Arnab Goswami's case, even 1 day of deprivation of liberty is a threat to mankind and citizens. So therefore, why should Zubair lose out on 4 days of his life? He has not denied making the tweet. Why do you need to find the computer from where the tweet is made? And tomorrow, can you imagine, there are 2 India's most reputed journalists who I'm great fans of on this show right now. Imagine, ma'am, tomorrow, if your sources are compromised by your computer, your cell phone, or your laptop being given, any party in power which does not like an independent journalist will simply file a case or get someone to file a case and then have these details and data. So what are we talking about? We are making a police state.
Shashank, are you comfortable with with seeking, context has to matter, right? Context. I can understand if we're investigating a terror plot, a ploy to plant bombs, a major corruption scandal, but we're arguing over speech. We're arguing over speech and the consequences of speech. And this seems an extremely disproportionate remark to seize computers, laptops, and phones. Shashank.
Barkha ji, in the own words of Zubair, he is not a journalist. In fact, there is a tweet which has been viral on Twitter where he is saying that he is not a journalist. That is the first contention. Now, second point is whether there should be laptop confiscated by the court to the police. Now, to respond to that, I would say that legal procedure is very clear. Now, if you have to have 295A, if you have to have blasphemy law in India, you need to have equal yardstick for everyone. Now, just because Muslim community comes on road because if you see something against their prophet, while Hindu community just ask for an FIR when you abuse their gods, I guess that is completely different contention to make. When my learned senior lawyer is on this panel is saying that there has been no riot as far as Zubair's tweet is concerned, that shows that Hindus actually believe in due process of law, and that is why they actually approached judiciary or for that one police. Whereas in Nupur Sharma's case, and why I'm pointing out Nupur Sharma is because of the fact that Zubair was the person who put out the edited clip of Nupur Sharma. In Nupur Sharma's case, there has been numerous protests, riots, arson around the country, and like half an hour ago, one person has been assassinated by someone who was offended by a Hindu because he was supporting Nupur Sharma. So I guess if you do not give this liberty or this
I'm not
right
aware. I'm not aware of this assassination, so I would just be a little careful before we present it as fact. I don't want to take a claim of somebody on social media.
I can show
I'm
it
just
to
saying I
you.
don't know. No, I'm not questioning the tweet. I'm just saying let's get deeper into the facts, whether we know this has happened. It's an empty boast. I just want to underline that we should also be careful of what we say and what might provoke feelings all around. So that's the only part that I'm trying to make. Hardik, do you want to come in on this? You know, that he will. Yeah, Mr. That's coming to you right after that. Hardik?
I think the premise that someone should be arrested for a tweet is absolutely silly, no matter what the context is. I think that we have now two problems. One is that some people want to enforce a street veto, and the other problem is we have an electoral veto where the state wants to use its power. Both of these consequences are extremely terrible for free speech for the average citizen.
Yeah. Tavleen, I'll give you the last word. The judge has observed that there's an absence of cooperation from Zubair. Zubair will now be taken to Bangalore, where... I'm so sorry, Mr. Azad, you wanted to come in, and then I'll give Tavleen the last word. Sorry, go ahead,
Yeah.
Mr. Azad. Yeah.
On 2 points. One is, of course, on the point of electronic evidence, which the magistrate is seeking. So, I would have thought that the best way to investigate this case was that once the FIR was registered, if the police thought it fit to be registered, then they should have got a court order for seizing his laptop. But the question, which rightly said by some other gentleman, is that the tweet is already there on record. He has accepted that this tweet, but the magistrate does not need a 4-day remand to seize that laptop, because the question is, they already say that the matter has been formatted, so the laptop is there. But 4 days of detention is certainly something which I would not agree with.
Absolutely. And as we now conclude this program, let me give Tavleen the last word. Tavleen, go ahead.
We should all, whether we're Hindus or Muslims or Sikhs or private citizens or journalists, be very worried by the way this whole thing is being done, because tomorrow they'll come for us. So, it's not about we cannot take sides on this. It's wrong, whether it's Arnab Goswami or whether it's Zubair Mohammed. It is wrong. And the state cannot be given this kind of power. If we concede that, we're actually attacking our own constitution.
I have to agree, and I think we can all agree probably on that note, that overarching powers to the state and to criminalization of speech and a kind of decontextualization from which speech incites violence and which speech is a comment is a very, very slippery path for a democracy, and that is something that we all need to be concerned about. Mohammed Zubair is to be taken to Bangalore according to a court order now available, where he will be asked to hand over his laptop. The court has justified this 4 days of custody by saying that the laptop used to post this tweet has not been recovered. But as has been pointed out on this program, Zubair has never denied that tweet or suggested that it came from anywhere else. So we're not very sure what more is going to be found on this laptop, and a lot of questions there. But for now, thank you very much, Shashank, Sanjoy, Yashovardhan, Azad, Hardik, and Tavleen. And to our audience, we will see you tomorrow. Have a great evening.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.